Get out.
What you just said.
Get out. You just tied it into the worst superhero movie ever.
Batman and Robin's worst.
Get out.
Welcome to the Beacon House Podcast, recorded live in Knoxville, Tennessee.
All right. Thanks for joining us today, you guys. This is Spencer.
Casey.
Hunter.
All right. We're going to be talking a little bit about, we saw a movie this week, didn't we?
Just a little movie.
A little Netflix movie.
A wee little chapter 0 and 3.
That's right.
Just dropped right after the Super Bowl in our laps. Complete surprise.
Okay, see, I didn't know that. I didn't know that it came out right after the Super Bowl.
It was a movie that was done by Paramount, and Netflix bought the rights. I believe it was $40 million, and it was supposed to come out April 20th, is what IMDb said, in theaters. And Netflix went, we're going to buy the rights, and we're going to drop it in February, right after the Super Bowl.
In case you guys haven't guessed, the movie we're talking about is the Cloverfield Paradox.
Yes.
So, and I knew that I did a little bit of research after I saw it, and supposedly they started leaking clues and stuff like on the internet, just like they did with
The ARG, yeah.
Okay. So we all saw this movie, and up to this is like a week ago, and we haven't talked about it.
No.
Nobody knows what anybody thinks about this movie yet.
Me and Hunter have dabbled.
General.
Just because we were excited. We're big bad robot nerds.
Okay, and I like too, and that's just J.J. Abrams, basically.
Yeah.
For anybody listening that's not sure, Bad Robot is J.J. Abrams' production company, and you've seen that on everything. And he's got a couple little Easter eggs that you find in all. We'll get into all that stuff. So anyway, first off, before we get too far, you guys doing okay today?
Doing good.
Good. You've been all right. I know you were a little under the weather. Stretch out a little bit over there.
I've taken my echinacea for the day. I'm feeling pretty good.
Taking your echinacea for the day.
Yeah, I think that's how you say that.
Yeah.
If not, that's embarrassing.
You've got a pretty good-looking beard, so even if you say that wrong, you get licensed to because you're manly.
I forgot to wear my flannel shirt today, though.
You don't need it. The beard gives you distinction.
Thank you.
Shit. All right. Well,
so do you want to go over what the synopsis of Cloverfield Paradox is, or just jump straight into what we thought? Like, do you want to go into spoilers already, or do you want to wait?
Well, so this is a spoiler-filled podcast.
100%.
Spoiler alert.
A lot of spoilers. Let's go ahead and I tell you what. Why don't you guys give a synopsis of the movie, and even if there's a couple spoilers, I'll go back and we'll give you guys do the synopsis.
Go ahead, Hunter, because I feel like you followed the ARG. I'm pretty sure you watched all 3 movies this week, and I've only had time to watch the Paradox.
I feel like I should have. I watched Paradox twice this week. Not to give away my thoughts on the movie. Yeah, synopsis. Okay, so we're on the International Space Station. Bunch of astronauts, or the Cloverfield Station, I guess, is what they changed it to from the original. But a bunch of astronauts and scientists are up there. They're working on particle acceleration to make pure energy that will never run out so that we can stop the growing escalation of possible World War III.
Like a sustainable energy.
Yeah, sustainable energy source.
Which in the future, and we should state this movie's set in the future.
2028.
2028. That was something I didn't understand at first. It caused me to have some problems later, but I went back. Movie set in the future.
They fire the accelerator. It doesn't work. They fire it one more time. It does work, but not the way they need to. And then we have a juicy sci-fi movie.
Totally.
Problems ensue.
I mean, we're talking Philadelphia Experiment meets Evil Dead.
Okay, I'm glad you said that because
Yes.
one of the very first things I got out of this, once the plot started to unfold, is that this is totally Philadelphia Experiment territory.
Oh, yeah.
Where experiments gone awry, tear open reality, and then all of a sudden, even with the person getting fused and all that, I was like, this is totally that.
Which, by the way, was the freakiest part to me. A lot of people didn't like the whole dude's arm getting sucked into the wall. That I thought was
we
freaky.
both saw that in the preview.
Well, I thought that was freaky, but the woman in the wall with like wires fused into her body,
Totally.
and just like that put me on a different level of creeped out.
The metal is it
Rebar, I think.
Rebar, yeah, the rebar through her shoulder, same wound and metal object as Beth from the first movie.
Really?
Yeah,
I thought
when
that
they
was
find
more here.
No. It looks like it when they first get up to her because it's at that. I noticed that myself, but I also did some post film ARG stuff we'll get into later, and they drew
I
comparisons.
should verify that when I say right here, I mean in the middle of like
Oh,
the
yeah, he was
chest.
in
I
his
just
chest.
said right here, and I hope that people would know what I meant.
It looked
Yeah,
like
no,
you were,
it's through the shoulder.
you looked like you were having a stroke for a minute there.
Yeah.
We're glad. I can speak for the listeners. We're all glad you didn't. Maybe.
Thanks.
But and let's go ahead with kind of back to the synopsis thing. Like you said, chaos ensues. But yeah, for anybody that's not seen the movie, and by the way, you should probably, if you care about our feelings, and we know you do, you should stop this and go watch the movie and come back. But we'll kind of try to walk you through it in case you don't want to necessarily sit through the movie. These people are on the space station and they've got this, what was it called? The Shepard
The Shepard accelerator.
particle
whatever.
accelerator, which is supposedly kind of loosely based on the Hadron, the
Yeah.
God particle and like our particle
Well, that was the
accelerator.
original title of the movie, so definitely derived from it.
Okay. And I'm not going to talk like I'm a physicist, but is it CERN where they do all those things and they accelerate the
I
particles?
think so.
Okay. So
I was just going to say not to forget that every scientist on the space station is from a different nationality, which also kind of brings in this element when
it totally looked like a welcome to state college
well, I mean,
brochure.
people start pinning stuff like, you have everyone thinks the Russian is a bad guy, even though he turns out not to really. He just is a little paranoid, and then they all switch and they think the German's the bad guy, and it follows this weird stereotype of who's usually the bad guy in Die Hard. It's usually the Russian or the German.
Yeah.
So
True. That's true. And so they fire up this particle accelerator to try and I guess it's going to power up the station or whatever. It's going to prove that they've got renewable energy. It's this big thing, and they do it, and it's successful, and everybody's happy. But then all this stuff goes wrong.
The Earth disappears.
The Earth disappears from their radar, and also back on Earth, the ship disappears from there. So everything's all messed up. And at one point, right after this, stuff starts getting weird. They open this wall, and this completely new person has been fused inside the wall with the mechanical equipment and all that, the wiring, and it's like going right through her leg and her face, and they have to literally cut her out of the wall. Nobody has any idea who the hell she is. And then it turns out she was already on the ship in another reality.
yeah, in a separate dimension, she was the Russian. She was the Russian. She was female instead of male in this alternate reality. And that's kind of where the multiverse theory comes in, where it's like there's similar universes, but certain things are different, certain small things. Like, the Russian in our universe was a male. This one's a female. And then there's also a point where the Russian looks at, the main character and says, the German's a bad guy. Like, we found out that he was. And it turned out he wasn't. It literally was just a different reality where he was.
Yeah, like there's slight differences. Like maybe they have country music, but not everybody's into Luke Bryan.
Right.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
I thought
Maybe.
she replaced the
kidding.
Chinese woman.
No, that's what her job was. But she
The
was
jobs
Russian.
were the same, but she would. No, I knew that, but I thought that's a detail. I guess really doesn't matter. For
I think in 2018 or probably in 2028, it's hugely taboo to try and replace a Chinese woman.
Wow.
It's already bad. I mean, seriously. Sorry. Anyway,
So the Cloverfield paradox.
getting back on track. Come on, guys.
I just want a record scratch right there.
You guys got to loosen up. So anyway, okay, and then who wants to take us through the synopsis
Just
more
in
then?
silence.
Well, I mean, literally, they grab this woman out of the wall, they repair her, they freak out, wondering how she even got on the ship, who she is.
Fucking people start dying.
And then more stuff starts changing. You have
The foosball table,
the foosball table starts moving on its own.
and then the colors change randomly.
Yeah. Earthworms disappear. And they show up in the Russian guy later on.
Yeah.
Note about that for later.
You got a note on that? Okay.
So weird that he was like messing with his eye and his face.
Yeah.
And went crazy.
I love when his eye goes all wacky in the mirror. I thought that was a great scene. Where he,
Well, then you also have what was the thing? The gyro?
The gyro.
The gyro was in his stomach.
which
It
is
was
sort of
just
like one of the key pieces of the ship that powered the Shepard particle accelerator was this round, almost
navigation cube,
Navigation cube almost looked like something out of the movie Hellraiser. Like it was very machine, and it was a really, really stylistic.
Yeah, it looked like the box.
Yeah. And that was the thing that it was key to the operation of the ship and all the mechanics, and then it fucking disappeared. And later it was like inside the guy along with all these worms.
Mundy's arm cut him open.
Well,
Yeah.
it's just it's strange that everything that went missing on the ship ended up in the Russian. like earthworms gone in the Russian stomach. He throws them up, explodes, into nothing but earthworms.
Yeah.
And then they have to like dig around his stomach because Mundy's separated arm, which by the way was also crazy scene where he's using those like weird foam metal and then like heating it up and it would like solidify. And then he sets his arm and just grabs him. And then his arm gets separated, which by the way reminded me a lot of the Evil Dead where it's this horrible thing happening.
Yeah.
This guy's getting his arm severed off by a wall. But yet somehow it's a funny situation.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and after so the guy's arm gets severed, and then the arm comes back on its own, crawling like totally Addams Family style down and then the arm even later they put it like in this box, but they could still see it, and it's moving and it's writing things to them. Like it's the arm tells them to look inside the Russian, and they do, and they find the gyro or whatever the machine, and basically just people start dying and things go really all to hell on this ship in this alternate reality. But there's some other things going on there's some like dynamics between the characters, right? Like the new mysterious lady from the wall knows
Ava.
she knows her from she's one of the main protagonists of the story.
Yeah,
the black
Ava
lady
was their some human correspondent of theirs for the team on Earth.
and she's British, right?
Yes.
And so she, her and the lady were like best friends or something back in the alternate reality. Is that?
Yeah.
Am I reading that right?
In her original reality, they didn't know each other. In the second reality, which is, I guess, how she wound up in the wall in the first place, that was her reality, the wall
Right.
chick. They were friends.
And
Right.
she wasn't even supposed to be on the space station. She decided
Right.
to stay because you come to find out that she had Ava had a tragedy happen where her children were killed in a fire accident that was caused by her.
Because she was
having
stealing power.
No, she had a power cell, which was very,
Right.
dangerous.
Sure.
Caused a fire, burned the house down. Her and her husband kind of, at the very beginning, you see them kind of being distant.
Not a great couple.
Well, they're just, they seem to really still love each other, but they're very distant. And he was just like,
Fractured,
this is what you need. Go on the mission. Go into space.
That's weird. You
what
just don't
gotta
see
do.
you don't see a lot of married couples like that.
No.
I was kidding.
Oh,
But anyway, so
it is the future.
that's true. Maybe things will get better.
10 years from now.
I'm not holding my breath on that. So, but anyway, so there's a dynamic between them, and she has this backstory, like she had done something immoral, and it caused her family to die, and that's why she was in space. And this reality, but in the other reality, she's still happy, and she starts to have a real crisis of character over trying to maybe stay in the new reality to go and warn her other self. And we're not even going to talk about what Christopher Lloyd in Back to the Future would say about that shit, but to try and go, that was time, wasn't it? Well, whatever. But she's going to try to warn the lady, don't make the power cell because it's going to kill your family and blah, 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 blah. So now she doesn't want to go back, and they're trying to get back. Shit's going crazy on this shit. What else?
The new lady, turns out that she runs amok at the end, and this is nothing to do with even Ava's goal of trying to get back to Earth and anything else. She has this ulterior motive, which becomes the primary problem. It was originally, we need to leave this reality, go back to ours, and we'll fix everything. And
Right.
then it becomes, that's great, but there's a chick with a gun walking around the space station shooting people.
Yeah.
And that's in like the last 10 minutes.
And
So
it's
that,
totally like this weird gun that they like 3D printed.
yeah.
Yeah, the Russian did because he went crazy.
Yeah.
Because the worms told him to.
Yeah. Totally. Apparently, even in 2028, worms have not become more civilized.
Yeah, the lady in the wall, I'm going to ignore that.
Thank you.
The lady in the wall finds the 3D printed gun that they had locked away.
Yeah.
And in that time realizes they're going to leave me in this reality without a space station to get this energy. So I'm taking the space station from them, and I'm going to get Ava into the escape pod, knock her out, come back in, kill the last two guys,
Yeah.
and take the space station for myself.
And that was sort of her angle. The girl from the wall. Anybody that hasn't seen this, that's listening to this,
it's so confusing.
they have absolutely no idea what's happening.
No, it's
in life.
absolutely just confusing.
Again, go see the movie if you haven't.
Yeah, but the lady from the other reality, from the wall, at the end, kind of turns on them, and it was because in her reality they didn't get the shepherd to work.
the Shepard blew up.
Okay.
Yeah, in her reality, the Shepard crashed. They saw news footage of their space station in the Atlantic crashed while they were in the space station in
So
space.
she's like, second chance. Screw all these people. I got to get this thing back.
Yeah, these people aren't my reality.
And in
so.
both realities, the Earth has become impoverished of power, clean power, and nations have started to go to war. It's like a World War III, but it's over lack of resources.
Which I have a theory on that for the second universe. That because you come to find out that in the second universe, the ship crashes and they're immediately at war. Like they listen to the radio or the TV broadcasts, and the second reality, I mean, within moments of that, the Shepard blowing up, war starts. And it's just pandemonium. But that goes into like my theory for like 10 Cloverfield Lane, things like that. So if you guys are done with the synopsis and want to get into the theories or to what everything means, I'm all for it.
We need to move in that direction. Is there anything else before we move away
to
from
end? Scary lady gets sucked into space like the newborn from Alien Resurrection. It was dope. And then Zemo from Captain America Civil War and Ava go down to Earth, and then our precious baby Clover rears its ugly mug up against above the clouds and roars.
Which is full fan service.
Full fan service.
It does nothing to tell the people who've never seen the first Cloverfield, which I don't know why you'd watch Paradox without watching Cloverfield or 10 Cloverfield Lane, but it was pure fan service. It's just, here's the monster that everyone was really upset that we didn't show a full picture of in the first movie.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And that, I noticed that too.
Cleverly Sarah's story, but it's fan service.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and give you when I saw this, okay. On the recommendation of you guys, I was excited to look into it. Went home and I was watching it. First thing I noticed that I thought was cool is the Netflix Paramount crossover. Like I noticed that on one of the first screens. Netflix and Paramount are working together on a movie, and I thought that's got to be significant just in the terms of development of today. Like Netflix is getting that big that they're working with major companies now on movies, and maybe it's because Paramount partially owned it. I don't know, but that to me, that stood out to me.
Well, not Paramount, Netflix is actually doing this with another movie, which is the director of Ex Machina is doing a new movie with Natalie Portman called Annihilation, and Netflix is in talks with them to get that movie to be shown on Netflix, where they pay like a huge chunk of the budget to make the movie, or that made the movie. They still get a theatrical release, but you also can watch it on Netflix.
Like while it's in theaters?
I believe so.
Okay.
Or if like it'll go in theaters for like a week or two, then go on Netflix, and you can do one or the other.
Got it.
It's a cut losses idea. Annihilation has a better chance over here theatrically and probably in a limited capacity, like you were saying. Netflix has it, though. They're going to be the international distributors for the movie. So outside of not just the United States, I can't remember how it breaks down globally, but over here in the West, I think it's like includes Canada too for like domestic things. But basically whatever's not domestic and is considered international, Netflix has that movie, and they'll be providing it through Netflix, which means they obviously have it whenever it's done here.
So we're not getting it on Netflix here.
No, we probably will, but they're doing it theatrically here first, at least. Okay. Whereas when it's in theaters here, it will be on Netflix.
And that
elsewhere.
Yeah, and just that whole concept of Netflix crossing over distribution rights with major movie companies, like that's huge. Mm-hmm. And I think it's going to be another one of those things where we've never seen it before, and Netflix is doing kind of spearheading it. It's going to be interesting to see where that goes.
Yeah.
But that was my first thing that jumped out at me. The second thing we started to get introduced to the cast is it had the girl from Crouching Tiger, Ziyi Zhang or Zhang Zi, depending on which order you put the name in, which country you're in or whatever. But I thought that was cool because that's one of my classic favorite movies. I remember they picked up the sequel to Crouching Tiger, which was Green Destiny. It was one of the earliest full production Netflix movies, like way back. And it was okay. It wasn't great, but that was a big deal. So I was like, oh, it's cool they cast her. And then early in the movie, when they were running the Shepard accelerator test, one of the first things you see on the dash shaking is the little slusho, like a bobblehead kind of a thing. And I was like, there you go. So that's more Bad Robot fan service, like you would say. And I thought it had some great gore in the movie, like at first. And I'll give somebody else the floor here in a minute, but I will say this: I was totally on board with everything up until the arm scene. I mean, go.
Wait, no, not just go. I want to hear your thoughts. Why is it the arm scene ruined it for you?
I thought it was so stupid.
That's
I thought it was the dumbest thing. I don't think it was well executed. I don't think. I mean, I know that they were trying to put a little bit of humor in an otherwise kind of a dark movie, but I think, to me, this movie, I'm just going to come out and say it, this movie had the biggest identity crisis of any movie I have ever seen. It was trying to be 4 or 5 different movies all at once, and it failed at all of them. I'm not saying I hate it. I'm saying I thought I was sitting through a wonderful movie, and I literally got hit in the face with a turd.
I can't help but agree. I enjoyed the movie personally, but I can't help but agree that this movie did not know what it was, and I'm okay with that. Like, watching it, I was like, oh, there's a little thing from here, Philadelphia Experiment, a little Evil Dead,
Yep.
a little Event Horizon over, Dash over here.
We heard friends of ours on the internet calling it the Event Horizon remake or sequel or whatever.
I don't think it was a full-on Event Horizon because that movie is real dark, and this movie was nowhere near that dark.
No.
But I looked at this movie as answer some questions for me, and I think it definitely did that. It answered some questions that I had about the first one. It filled in a few blanks that I had about 10 Cloverfield Lane, which...
Now, what were those? Go ahead and get into that, because that, again, I was so confused when this one ended that I just immediately went on YouTube and started watching theory videos and, videos about how does this all tie together. And I was a huge fan of the original Cloverfield. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are like, and how many times have you heard this? I don't like shaky camera. And I'm like,
every time.
Bitch, let me tell you. Sorry. And I'm serious. Like, they go, that's why I didn't enjoy Blair Witch. Well, I didn't enjoy Blair Witch because of that either. But the way that they directed Cloverfield, the way that they shot Blair Witch is not even in the same, not anywhere in the same ballpark. Like, it was cleverly done by J.J. Abrams, I think. And again, maybe you still don't like it, and that's fine. But I thought Cloverfield was great. I thought 10 Cloverfield Lane was great. I still, when I saw them in theaters, I was a little bit unsure how they were related. And obviously, if you just have to... 3 clicks of the keyboard and you're on YouTube, and 55 people will tell you how they're related.
Right.
You guys will probably tell me how they're related here in a minute, more than I know. But I was big fans of those, and I kind of kept waiting to see how this movie was going to relate. So how did it tie in with 10 Cloverfield Lane?
Well, first of all, it doesn't tie in.
Right.
It just fills in some things. But before we go there, I just want to point out that found footage films, which is the shaky cam,
Yeah.
by far one of my favorite genres.
Okay.
I'll watch the stupidest, cheesiest, like Devil's Pass and Frankenstein Theory, like Frankenstein's Army. Also, just
What We Do in the Shadows is one of the best found footage,
yeah,
quote unquote.
quote unquote. I really enjoyed found footage because it shows how easily you can make a great horror movie. First, Paranormal Activity
With a GoPro, or whatever.
Filmed at the cheapest it possibly could be. Made a franchise, just a massive franchise out of it.
You're talking about Paranormal Activity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Man, and you never hear anybody complain about that one. It was a slam dunk, but it was
Yeah.
totally shot on like small cameras and things,
Yeah.
right?
So, but anyways, my theory is not that really anything ties into 10 Cloverfield Lane because really that movie was a completely different movie.
Mm.
It was going to be already made anyways. And then Bad Robot picked it up. Is that it?
Should we get into that now?
Yeah, Bad Robot picked up 10
Okay.
Cloverfield Lane. It's a sister movie. It takes place in the same universe. But I think it takes place at a way different, distant future time.
No, they both take place. Cloverfield
Oh,
takes
shit.
place in 2008.
He's like, actually, Casey, go fuck yourself.
Well, okay.
Go on, Hunter. You got the floor.
10 Cloverfield Lane takes place in either 2015 or 2016 when it came out. It does actually have a direct connection to Cloverfield Paradox, and it was one I didn't pick up on at first, and that was one of the few things I was upset about because I was like, I love both of those movies.
Don't be
Right.
so hard on yourself.
You need to connect them directly, but it's pointed out to me that Emmett in 10 Cloverfield Lane is going on about what happened on the surface that made him, I need a GTFO and get over to Howard's basement now. And it was
the guy in the
power
video.
outage. Yeah, power outage, followed by a huge boom and a giant red light in the sky that he said was something like biblical, was what he said.
So
That is the shepherd.
So 10 Cloverfield Lane takes place in universe or reality B.
The infinite reality possibility that Cloverfield paradox gives us states inherently that it can either be that, or it can be that while jumping realities between two realities disconnected from the first two, it did literally tear open space-time, like Mark Stambler, Howard's relative, in some fashion or other from 10 Cloverfield Lane stated, and in tearing that open, stayed inside its own two realities, but was able to cause things to happen in reality A and B as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's
whoa.
it's a if you buy into the
Let me slow
multiverse
my head
theory.
spinning.
Whoa.
Thank you, DC Comics,
like,
and
I've
Jeff
got
Johns
some-
for
I
training
got-
me before.
I've got several seasons of Friends on DVD. Whoa, I don't know. Well, okay, but here's the thing I don't understand about that. Cloverfield Paradox was like 2028. Mm-hmm. Was 10 Cloverfield Lane also in 2028?
Cloverfield Paradox, what they did tore open space-time, the fabric of space-time. So in doing that, it allows for actual dimension hopping, reality hopping, and time travel
So I kind of understand
all
it.
at the same time.
Okay, so basically, when they fired off the particle accelerator in 2028, that caused it ripping space time, like you said, and it pulls in this alternate reality, and in that alternate reality, things started happening 20 years ago.
Yeah. So
They're not taking place the same year, but the reality had. Well, when you change reality, it changes the past too.
Yeah, there's one of many theories. I have many theories like you do as well, so we'll get into that more. But one, I'll try to keep this short, just to explain the space-time thing, is one timeline idea that works is timeline, we'll say X for wherever that is Cloverfield Paradox in 2028. One of the firings that works, whether it's the one that just truly worked, still fired it, whether it was the first one that jumped them or the one that they jumped back with, there's three options there. One of those caused the space station to collapse, which was the reality that they went to. And that collapse, also because of space-time, even though that happened in 2028 where their space station was, also could have been that thing breaking space-time itself in 2007 when Cloverfield takes place, and is the thing that falls into the Atlantic at the end of the movie, before the movie takes place. So that woke up the creature, and that's that reality. Then you get to 10 Cloverfield Lane, where they attracted aliens, maybe the Martians, like Howard said, with the light and the opening of space-time, and they were like, Earth now is too powerful, that's not happening, so they go there to take over. And then there's the third timeline, which is their primary one, even though it jumps, where it was just them in World War III. Then they jump over, and World War III started, but in jumping, they tore open space-time. Again, I know I'm being repetitive here, but when they jump back, they fixed everything as far as like separating the realities again, but they didn't sew up or mend the wound in space-time itself. So in that reality, when they jumped, the Cloverfield monster woke up, and maybe all the other eggs did too. So they go to Earth, and there's just tons of them. That's why it's 10,000 feet tall versus 400 in 1 and 3.
Man, that's heavy. That's hard to get your head around. That's like saying right now today, if Casey took a dump and it had enough velocity, it could clog a toilet back in 1947. But if the plumber from 1947, because unions were stronger back then, fixes the toilet good enough, then it could also fix Casey's plumbing in 2018.
Who says I haven't done that?
Where do you think JJ got the idea for these movies?
Touche, gentlemen.
Casey took a massive poop
Touche.
in 2005.
Okay, so
You're welcome.
but basically, kind of what I'm getting out of that is because that's a lot to consider, but
It hurts the brain.
and the dump scenario hurts too. There's a thing where basically they can kind of fix all the continuity issues just by saying, well, there's unlimited realities and it could occur at any time, and they could fire this thing off in 2028, but then it comes through a rip in time and they're back in 2007, but it's 2028, and just like it could affect anything across any dimension, reality, or time, basically, right?
Yeah, the multiverse means that they can excuse anything now, which is good. That opens it up so that you have a continuity that allows for out of continuity in continuity things.
Yeah, and I
can do
totally
whatever.
don't have nearly as big of a problem with that as I do that guy that loses his arm and just continues
What
to...
are you talking about, arm?
Oh my God, that guy is so stupid.
What? No, that guy is wonderful.
We
I
love
love
that
him as
guy.
an actor.
Chris
Go,
O'Dowd.
yeah, Chris O'Dowd. Go watch the IT Crowd. Like it's.
No, I'm not. I have no
He's
problem
even
with the
in
guy's...
Bridesmaids, which
Okay.
is awesome as the cop in Bridesmaids.
Look, I feel like if in this movie, like if you, and I'm not familiar with all of his other work, but in this movie, I think you only like that guy if you like watching an actor ruin a movie. Like, he's doing a great job of really screwing this movie up. Like he's totally
What's the
accomplishing.
comic relief? Like you needed this
Here's the
movie was a
thing.
little too serious not to have
See,
a sprinkle of comedy in it.
I disagree. Like I feel like the movie was about to go somewhere awesome, and it got right to the edge of the diving board, and then it just started telling fart jokes.
I kind of see that. I actually agree with both of you, kind of.
And then after like 18 fart jokes, it turned into a rom-com, and I was like, wait a second, what?
Yeah, I think the movie wasn't going to be too serious or too dark. I actually would have preferred that it go that route, but I thought the execution of the arm event initially, and still think was questionable and kind of eh. But I think what he did with it and him as a character, I totally loved. So
Honestly, I think the arm thing should have killed him. Like it should have ripped his arm off, and then he bled out, and it should have been because they already started off being pretty gory. Mm-hmm. You know, with the worm explosion, the chick in the wall. So why is it that this guy's arm gets cut off and it's CGI perfect meat?
I feel like that's not really extreme gore. Like I feel like that was
Well, not extreme
for
gore.
sci-fi. It was like a little bit much, and that's why I liked it. I was like, oh man, this isn't going to just be people walking through gray hallways with blinking lights and trying to speak a plot into existence. Like there's some stuff.
no, that was
really-
after the cool stuff.
You want extreme sci-fi gore? Go watch Alien Covenant. That was the goriest alien movie I've seen in
Okay,
a while.
I still haven't seen it, but I'm okay. Okay, and I will. Okay, we'll get into that. That'll be another podcast. But that actually would make another good one.
It would
Yeah,
be
it really
great.
would.
Stay tuned, folks.
The Alien prequels.
The Alien show. So, let's get into some of the stuff. Well, anyway, do you guys have anything else to add about?
I think 10 Cloverfield Lane takes in place in the universe where the space station blows up. Mm-hmm. I think that's the universe it takes place in because John Goodman character sees that World War III is about to happen. He gets into his bunker. He brings Emmett with him, finds this girl, brings her there. You know, you have a woman whose face is melted off come up to the door, which, I mean, that looks like war wound or alien invasion wound. But at the end of that movie, she's driving off and she hears the radio broadcast. And it sounds like a place that's already been war torn and is now being invaded by aliens. So I feel
possible.
like World War III already had, went on. I honestly, the way 10 Cloverfield plays out, I have no idea how long they were in that bunker for. No clue. Because it seems like whenever she gets in that wreck and gets pulled into the bunker, things are fine. And then she wakes up, shit's gone down. She's like, nah, like nothing, everything's fine. She's not aware of any kind of war. So I'm assuming she went in that bunker before the Shepherd blew up. But I definitely think that's the universe it takes place in.
And do you feel like it's not the same universe that the original Cloverfield movie takes place in?
It's not.
It's
Okay.
not. I feel like that one, whenever they tore a hole in time and disappeared to universe or reality B, in reality A very Lovecraftian Cloverfield monster came through that tear, and that's what we have. It's we call him Clover. Is that the monster?
That's the name of them. I don't like it, but it's the monster's name.
From the first movie.
Yeah,
Yes.
Clover.
They call it Clover. Okay. Because I thought that the trail of breadcrumbs they left during the first Cloverfield movie was that there was something going on, slusho, and there were these chemicals, and it came from underneath
The seabed nectar,
the
yeah.
seabed nectar, and then it sort of created the monster, woke the monster up, and it came up. But it was never ever identified as like something that came through an interdimensional pull that just came up out of the sea, kind of.
It didn't. It's aquatic. It's an aquatic super fauna, I guess, like a giant animal.
Yeah.
Came from Mariana Trench.
Yeah, that's why it doesn't have Godzilla powers. It's just a giant, scary beast. But the idea there was that Todd Grotto, in drilling for the seabed nectar, which could have led to the World War III scenario in all realities anyways, because the non-renewable resources. But the idea was they were drilling, that disturbed one of the trenches where tons of those eggs were. You can reference that in the manga. There was a manga that revealed that there's like hundreds of those monsters in cocoon sacks in the trench. And then whatever that thing is that fell, which I think we're supposed to believe at this point was somehow one of the space stations or related to that. But whatever fell hit the trench and disturbed Clover. Clover woke up and was a newborn and scared.
At the beginning of the first Cloverfield movie, when they're in the apartment and they're going on the balcony, you see something coming down from the sky. The very beginning of the whole.
That's the Ferris wheel scene, where him and the girl are on a Ferris wheel.
Yeah, yeah.
And behind them, they're like taking like a selfie, like,
and this
hey,
thing
here
comes
we
out of
are,
the
and this
sky.
thing goes blink right into the water.
Right, and then they sort of allude at the end of this new thing, the Cloverfield paradox, that it was the escape pod, right?
That's the illusion. Yeah.
That's the illusion.
Or it could be the piece they chunked off and the captain died in.
Yeah, I thought they were
floated
going
off.
for that.
Now, let me blow your mind a little bit more.
This is
with
already
this theory,
so confusing.
I know. It's,
And here's
it's almost not listenable.
Do you see though? This is for anything to be this complex, but yet there's this animated arm crawling around, and it's like writing to people, and the guy's
He's
like,
still hung
"Oh
up.
my God, there's an arm!" Whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, how does it all fit together? I just feel like there's maybe a continuity.
Because it's okay for HUD to make jokes about the scary guy that sets homeless people on fire in the first movie.
I guess so. Go on.
Now, quick question: what if, whenever they come back, or they do the particle accelerator again, and they travel through time again, what says that they're not in a different reality where that same thing happened, but these monsters exist?
And that's what he was saying. Possible infinite realities. So they may not go back to there. They may go to a third reality, and that may. I mean, where does it end?
Because even though the husband found this girl, they're in the bunker, and that's like the tie-in. It could be a different wife. You know, this might be in a different reality where her husband didn't want her to go, and she disappeared, and now she's back, and he's like, you know, I don't know. It's bizarre, and there's so many possibilities that I feel like there's no way they can go wrong from here. Even though if you look at the reviews, apparently Paradox was a very wrong way to go.
Well, here's what I do. Do you remember what happened with Lost? Like, he lost. I didn't even mean to say it that way. He lost a lot of viewers because it started out, and it just sort of, it kind of got on.
Writer strike is the reason that fell apart.
Yeah, I mean, well, and so many, same reason that they canceled Veronica Mars. I hate
Cough,
it.
Damon Lindelof, cough.
God. So, but a lot of people got super. I was a huge fan of Lost, honestly, right up to the end. I thought the last season was a little weird, but right up until the end, I still dug it. And it was hard to talk to people because everybody started hating it because it just zigged and zagged. So, and it was obvious that they were writing it into these new dimensions and realities and stuff as they went along. And the problem with that is you leave behind all the subject matter that everybody's dying to see. They want to see these story arcs come, and the story arcs and that. So it's almost if you give J.J. Abrams a little too much time and a lot of cameras, he's going to do something really bizarre.
He starts getting in his own head and feel like he's starting to think maybe that this isn't as cool, and so he starts trying to find different ways to write it in.
Yeah.
But you can even put in Lost into this universe.
You can. The Dharma Initiative is in the Cloverfield movies.
That's right. Dharma, the tape.
The ship falls apart because a piece of the shepherd flies through it.
I mean,
That's what the hatch actually is.
Yeah.
well,
Embedded in an island.
and hopefully we're moving toward
Who
a thing.
knows?
Hopefully we're moving toward a thing where all the Abrams stuff will be connected because they've already connected it to Star Trek too, haven't they? Okay.
The
Did they
Slusho.
really?
Yeah, Slusho's in Star Trek.
That's right. Slusho is in Star
Oh
Trek.
God.
It may not be like a plot continuity, but you're going to, and the gas station he named after
An Alias. Yeah, Kelvin, his
Kelvin,
grandfather.
Grandfather, yeah.
How is Alias gonna fit?
And that's even in Star Wars too. So Kelvin is in Star Wars.
Well,
What about 10 Cloverfield Lane? The aliens are Klingons.
no, Alias actually fits just real quick, super easy. Whatever the character's name Jennifer Garner played in that, at some point after the series, she's probably on some mission and dies, and because she's involved with the people that are running the Dharma Initiative in Tagarado, they take her body and give it to the Hand, and then they resurrect her, and she goes to Hell's Kitchen and messes around with Ben Affleck as Daredevil.
God, get out of here. Get out.
What you just said.
Get out.
It
You
made
just
me-
tied it into the worst superhero movie ever.
Batman and Robin's worse.
Get out.
This
Pack your shit. You're going home, Hunter.
that everything you just said made me feel terrible.
I just want to drop this mic and be like, fuck it, I'm gone.
That was just terrible what you did.
You guys knew what you were doing when you invited me over here.
That's right. So okay,
God.
so we've gotten into the possibility of unlimited stuff, and I had some questions. Well, first, before we move into questions, is there anything else you want to add about?
No, I'm already just
I
fried.
will say this in defense of the movie: if going into it, I'm not blaming you guys. If somebody would have said, you know, this is like a space movie, but it's set in the Cloverfield universe, I would be like, oh, okay, I kind of get it. But I was basically, and I'm just one of those typical viewers, I was waiting on them to somehow attach this to the monster. It's
So was
the
I.
monster. I want the monster. It's a fucking monster movie. I want to see the damn monster. That's always, and I know that's the most childish, simple, short attention span,
I mean, that's-
typical viewer. But like, I'm dying to see the monster, and that was the big thing through all of Cloverfield. I remember in Lost when you finally got to see the smoke monster, it was pretty underwhelming. But just like in Jurassic Park, anything you want to see the big crazy thing that you can't see, and at this movie it was just a lot of weird, like incongruent space stuff. And at the end, the monster comes up out of the clouds, and I was like, oh, there it is, and then credits, and I was like, I'll smack you.
I want that sequel though. An Earth overrun by like 10,000 foot tall clovers.
Yeah, and it looked
But
really
what's the
cool.
story?
It
What's
looked
the
cool.
story?
You don't need one. It's fine.
Well, they ripped it. You know, how did that chart the reality it brought forth? Well, and they say the secrets to this whole thing are in that video where the guy's going, it'll bring demons and that kind of shit. Like that. And that was the brother of the guy from 10 Cloverfield Lane.
People say the brother, but I actually think that's a different reality from 10 Cloverfield Lane myself. So I feel like that could be him in a different reality.
Jesus.
Oh, wow. See, go to your questions. This is getting way too convoluted.
Well, and at first I was sort of like, so is this, even though it takes place in 2028, is this somehow a prequel?
It is.
Yep.
First prequel that ever came after all the other movies. That's crazy.
In the timeline.
And I'm assuming I know that the accelerator caused realities to open and all this stuff, but were they saying that's what caused the monsters, or were they coming up anyway out of the sea? If their true origin is the sea, then the reality just means
Well, who's to say that with the tear in time that these things didn't just become part of reality in that reality?
Well, and real quick, not to get all conspiracy
It's
on you,
possible.
but I'm going to get a little conspiracy on it. We were talking about the Philadelphia experiment.
Yep.
And then the second half of the Philadelphia experiment is the Montauk Project. And that was where they supposedly continued these experiments, and all this weird stuff came from other dimensions, like creatures, and destroyed the base, and it's nuts. That if they really are parroting that kind, I know I sound like a crazy person, like I'm wearing a fucking tinfoil hat. If they're kind of ramping off of that sort of theory, you know, for this movie, if there's a lot of parallels here to the Philadelphia experiment, then they're absolutely leaving the door open for this type of experimentation brings monsters into the world we inhabit.
What the guy said in the video.
Yeah, and exactly.
Stephen King's The Mist. It's the same concept. Montauk and Cloverfield Paradox.
Yes.
They tried to open a window. What they did was open a door.
And I love that. Make no mistake, that is one of my favorite weird, dark little staircases to go down in all of movies and storytelling and conspiracy and everything like that. And I think that's one of the reasons maybe I was annoyed with this movie is because I love that so much, and they were starting to get into that, and then it just became this big, weird space soap opera with a hand crawling around.
Yeah.
It's very Lovecraftian.
Yeah.
Like, everything can be tied back to H.P. Lovecraft. I mean, the monsters opening doors in different dimensions. He's writing stories about that in,
1920s.
Yeah, just way back in time.
What a badass.
I mean, you read some of his stuff, and you can tie it into movies, like certain psychological thrillers and stuff.
Sure.
Like, he delved deep into the mind of madness, and it was one of my favorite authors, absolutely. And this movie and the Cloverfield movies very much play on that. Clover the monster, very big play on like Cthulhu.
You remember people thought it was a Cthulhu movie at first when it was just
I would have
1808?
been totally okay with that.
I would have too, but then we wouldn't have Clover. And
But
stupid
it's such
name
a
aside.
dumb name.
It's a
so
terrible
dumb.
name, but the monster's great.
It is a great monster. And again, once again, why I can't stand not seeing it for...
No, I'm with you. I love
All that
all
time.
3 movies. I think the third one is easily the worst out of the series. I have high hopes for number 4 if it is Overlord. But at some point, you have the money, Paramount's behind you. When you kind of screw the pooch just a little bit, and Netflix is behind you to make sure you guys don't lose money.
Yeah.
Put the budget in, yank Matt Reeves back, or just let Drew Goddard, who's a good director now, that came up with this script in the first place, bring one of them back and be like, you don't even have to use the same characters, but give us a movie where Clover is running around and wrecking stuff.
And we see him, and you get the big payoff that you wanted. I mean, no, I totally agree. And I'm going to sound like a total noob here, but humor me. I'm asking also on behalf of maybe some of our audience, what is Overlord?
Oh, sorry.
That's supposed to be the 4th installment in the...
It might be. It is a confirmed, slightly sci-fi, mostly paranormal World War II thriller with J.J. Abrams producing. It's filmed, it's done, comes out in October. Paramount's behind it, and it's a Bad Robot production. All these prerequisites mean it can be a Cloverfield movie like that.
Okay.
The premise is soldiers land the day before or the day of D-Day, one of the two, and they veer off course, I think, a little bit, end up in a village that's Nazi-occupied, and in exploring, they find supernatural, scary things,
Whoa.
which could be anything. A lot of people think it's a Nazi zombie movie. I'm fine with that, but if it's, it could be that and still be Cloverfield. The particle accelerator broke space-time, right?
That's true.
So-
That's true. And just from what you described, that as a concept for a story with Abrams producing it, I'm on board. I'm down totally, 100%.
I want a sequel from every single movie they've made in this franchise so far.
The only thing that sucks is I heard that in this movie, a guy puts his arm in the wall and it gets cut off, and then he just walks around with a meat.
Except it's got a like a Nazi armband on, and
Yeah.
it's walking around. Yeah.
Every now and then, it just kind of like sits up on its nub, does a little salute, keeps crawling.
Oh my god!
You know, and I think here's
Sorry.
like the Alien movies, I think had some humor, and it was done. It totally didn't like wreck the movie. You still just felt like I'm in a terrifying space station, but this guy like Bill Paxton did something funny. To me, this when it started with the arm, it derailed the movie. Again, that's just my opinion.
To speak to that, as much as I grew to accept his character and that humor, and it eventually wound up not bothering me. At first, I too was like, I can see that you're going for humor here. I'm all about humor. Why are you doing this right now? This is not necessary. We're getting into the meat of stuff now.
Sure,
We are
sure.
getting into the nitty gritty of the weirdness, and now you've.
Well, and I think
just
for
kind of-
me, what happened, I just all of a sudden, I was watching a serious movie, and I was no longer watching a serious movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Which I get. It just to me, felt incongruent. Maybe not to everybody. And I guess if we went back and looked at it like, oh, I can't wait till this really goofy thing happens, you'd totally be on board. But I think maybe I just had a different set of expectations, which I'm guilty of that.
The way he died paid for everything because that was
It's pretty good.
That was pretty hardcore.
Yeah, that's pretty gruesome.
I'll go ahead and give kind of like my synopsis of my overall
You already
kind
do
of.
your questions? Like we already go through the questions?
Well,
that you
no,
wanna
yeah, my
ask?
questions are: was it a prequel, and did they cause the monsters, or did they just open realities where the
okay.
monsters would have happened anyway? And we sort of got into that. Here's what I feel like the writer and the director saw the movie Life, and they wanted to intentionally rip it off really badly. I put that the continuity of theme in this movie is horrible, but I would. I said, even in spite of that, I would sit through it again to see the monster at the end. And they did it with the other. I mean, it's been done with the other Cloverfield movies and Mist and everything like that. I said, ultimately, what I think that this was the Friday the 13th Part 10 Jason in Space of the Cloverfield movies.
Oh, no.
But you don't know how I feel about that. It might not be an
I mean,
know.
you also don't have to sit through the whole movie to see the end. You could just fast forward right to the last
When I
5 minutes.
know that, I thought something cool was going to happen the whole way, and then like at the end, I was like, "Oh, there it is!" Didn't credits.
Can we talk about how it became Cloverfield Paradox for a couple minutes? Because I think that could actually shed some light on what happened to it.
I have no idea what you're talking about, so please.
Okay, so I realized that we got off topic when you asked if 10 Cloverfield Lane was something else first. It was, that it was called The Cellar and then something like Valencia or something like that. And it was just going to be the movie you saw, complete with the references to Martians and everything else. When she escapes at the end, originally it was going to be revealed that John Goodman's character, while batshit, wasn't wrong, but he wasn't wrong about nuclear fallout, and you were going to see the Chicago skyline just smoldering. And then they took that, JJ and his people did, because they were the ones making it. They took that part and they were like, we can make our Cloverfield sequel now. And then when we get to Paradox, what happened was it was a movie called God Particle that had the Chinese character and the German character were actually part of a European space station. It had the same basic concepts. They're up there trying to get pure energy. Something misfires, they lose Earth. What happened, though, was they jettisoned to a different part of the galaxy and were, like, closer to Mars, but couldn't see it. And then America itself was in a war with Europe as a whole. A European spacecraft shows up, and then there's automatic tension because you're like, what's going to happen? They board, and that's where the Chinese and the German characters show up. But the movie at that point... Then there's a YouTube video on, I think it's Hybrid Network. You guys should watch it. It's really interesting. They go through the whole thing, and I'm going to mess up a lot of details. But it's basically a survival espionage military thriller in space, and it sounded super dope. Like, I would have loved to seen that. And if they ever decide to just make it anyways, I'd still watch it. But JJ was also producing that movie. That was another Bad Robot production, and that went into production... I think just a couple months after 10 Cloverfield Lane, and that's production itself where they're filming with actors, so they had the script already. When 10 Cloverfield Lane came out, JJ said, if it makes enough money and we can warrant a sequel, and we all know it did, he said, there's an idea that I have that could connect this and the other one in a way that makes sense. So I think he saw that skeleton of a script, rearranged some of the parts, kept the main bits, and then instead of the force of the blast from the particle accelerator moving them across the galaxy, he added in everything else that was Cloverfield. So some of the actors said they didn't know how it fit the Cloverfield universe, and I'm not calling anybody a liar, but I wonder if that was a contractual thing where they had to be like real vague. Because a lot of the stuff, like the stuff on Earth with the husband, that was actually the most disappointing part of the movie for me. It wasn't even the story part of it, although that would have been nice if it was deeper, but it was the obvious weekend green screen thing that they did.
Yes, it was.
The execution of it hurt me, but I was all for the story part.
Sure.
But, sorry, tangent. They take all that other stuff out, the stuff on the space station, and not including the newscasts and the actual Cloverfield proper references, but the actual conflicts that the actors have to deal with does not line up with what God Particle wound up being. It's much more similar to it because it's a human story still, but they don't line up. So I think JJ saw where he could take out what God Particle was, rewrite, insert Cloverfield things, and keep the movie essentially the same as far as like production, budget, and what was going to be required of it. And Paramount then was like, well, it won't mess with anything. It's a very different movie at this point, but we can keep the sets, keep the actors. The budget doesn't change. Go for it. And then they did test screenings a few months ago, and people were pissed. Apparently, they hated it. So,
well, and that was kind of my point. Everything you just said, like that all to me makes really good sense. Why that would happen, how we got to this point, but it just feels like it made everybody happy except anybody that was looking for just like a great story. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It didn't seem like a really inspired project anymore. It just seemed like they kind of put a bunch of bumper stickers on a previous project, and it just sort of hung that way.
Yeah,
you know?
It seems very much like every time J.J. Abrams has a movie in production, and everyone's like, it's Cloverfield, and he's like, it's really not. And they're like, no, it is. And he's like, Cloverfield, and just like puts a big tape sign over the name. I mean, he's like,
yeah, it's like
a Cloverfield sequel, and everyone's like, boo, it sucks.
Yeah, it was like Event Horizon with a Cloverfield bumper sticker on the wall. You know, I was like, wait a second, this is, and then at the end you see the monster. But up until that point, you were kind of like, this is not a Cloverfield movie.
Maybe that's the thing. J.J. Abrams had a really bad problem with putting lens flare in every movie that he made, and now he has a really bad problem putting Cloverfield in every movie that he makes.
I think that you're right, though, Spencer. I think it was just the space station drama, and probably with the Cloverfield connections inserted, because that stuff was obviously, again, watch the Hybrid Network video, but it's still very different from God Particle. But being delivered just that without the Earth connections, I think people were like, I mean, cool, I get it, but fuck this movie. And then JJ said, well, we have 4-day weekend, and Paramount gave me $10,000, and I have a green screen in my backyard. So let's get the husband actor, and we got you guys.
Hey, who wants lemonade? Okay.
Which hurts me, because I love the franchise. I actually think this is a good movie, but your Jason X comparison isn't too far off, because I love that movie. I don't think it's as bad as that, but
I don't think it's
I think Cloverfield Paradox ultimately works in that I do think it's smartly written, and I do think it's well acted. I do think that it's well executed, barring the Earth stuff. And I think it's an interesting, wonky, thrilling, kind of scary sci-fi film that's short and sweet.
Sure.
So on all cylinders, it's firing. It's like a Marvel Avengers movie. I don't mean that in a bad way, but just like it's there to entertain you within those tropes. But as a movie that has purpose, that is not even preaching, but just has an idea and is going to deliver on that idea.
Right.
Beyond the idea being multiverse, we can do what we want. I think it lacks that, and I think that's what brings it down. Because Cloverfield and 10 Cloverfield Lane for me are classics. Those are 10 out of 10s or 9.5 out of 10s. And this one is like a 7.5 out of 10 for me, which is not a bad rating, but it's so far down from the other two.
Does Super 8 tie into the Cloverfield universe?
Not at all. A lot of people think it does, but...
Good, because that movie's great.
Well, and on that note, we'll probably go ahead and wrap up here. We encourage you guys to send us an email or go on social media, wherever you find us, and comment. We would love to hear what you think about our thoughts on the movie and how, our review and all that kind of thing, and ask some questions or whatever. I'm sure we'll get back to you, whatever. But once again, we want to thank you guys for tuning in. Please look for us again on the internet. This has been the Beacon House Podcast from Knoxville, Tennessee. And my name is Spencer McCoy, and I'm here.
Casey Bishop.
Hunter Barnhart.
We'll be back to see you guys next time, all right?
Love you, bye.
Oh, my.